This is Brent again on the 2008 Can-Am Renegade 800 winch mount that I custom made. Here is my quad all torn apart so I could show you where everything is. As you can see, this is what it looks like with no front bumper, grill, or anything on the front end. As you can see, I had to open up the stickers that came on this model because they put stickers over the bolts that hold the grill on. So I had to be very careful at cutting those open. I'll show you the wiring right now. The contactor for the worn XT30 winch is mounted on the front cowling. It is mounted on just a piece of aluminum and is held in by that nut right there on top of a bolt that holds the shock mounts on. If you zoom in, you can see behind the fuse panel under all the wiring is the worn box for the wireless remote control system. It is in front of the steering stem behind the fuse panel, sitting on top of the frame rail with double back tape. Fit very well, very tight, and as you can see, I ran the wiring under the fuse panel and it runs up and over and is in that pile of electrical. As you can see right there is the fuse for the wireless remote system that Warren has, so it's easily replaced. The wiring on this will start in the back, was ran straight to the battery, runs along this outing, you can see it right there, goes up under this exhaust heat shield for the gas tank. It's right here. Goes up under the frame rail, goes to the other side of the quad, goes just above the exhaust up as high as it could go, comes along here, goes behind the air intake for the CV and air box. If you look behind in between there, you can see it sticking out. Runs to the front, runs up under the radiator overflow tank, around the front of the quad, goes up and goes through a hole behind the right shock mount, then comes up and goes to the contactor. As you can see, if you're really good with Warren, I have the wires mounted in reverse. Blue and yellow are going to the battery. Red and black are going to the winch because they're shorter because of the distance the contactor is mounted from the battery. Going back under, you can see that the black and red wires are right here. Yet to be mounted on the winch. It is all wire loomed. The only place that is showing wire is at the end of each wire where it has to connect to its contact. We'll go to the handlebars. On the left hand side, I mounted the switch directly to the bolt that holds the brake lever on. I didn't use the bracketry that came with the Warren winch just because I wanted it low in case it ever tips over, it won't break the switch. On the left hand side, you can see the wireless remote and holster. Because I have the X package, it has bulge handlebars 1 1/8. The factory mount does not design to hook to any handlebar except a 7/8. So with a heat gun, a little bit of patience, I was able to heat up the bracket and get it to fit. Was a little bit of a trouble, but nothing too major. On the front, because Can-Ams come pre-wired as they call it, and all that means is the power wire is run right here on this Renegade to this quick disconnect. I tapped into it right back there with that quick tap, and that is what's powering my system for the Warren winch. It also has wires which come up to the radiator overflow and are buried way down there that will plug directly into the Warren 1,500 pound kit that Can-Am sells. But since the kit goes for $500 to $600, I did not purchase it because 1,500 pounds is not too much for a machine that could weigh well over 800 pounds with a good sized rider on it. All I did was splice in there. That's all I did. It's the only splice on the whole quad that is into the factory harness. In a previous video, I have reverse lights on the back. I also have the Can-Am heated thumb throttle for winter riding up here in New York. All I did for all that stuff is splice. They have a quick connect here for the heated thumb throttle and heated grips. I spliced downstream for the reverse lights. That way it's on that accessory fuse, which is separate from this accessory fuse. That way the winch won't disable if the reverse light has a major malfunction and blows a fuse. That's the reverse light fuse, and here again is the Can-Am wireless remote fuse. Everything went together very well. No troubles, just had to plot out the wiring diagram. Here we go to the front of the quad again. I'll go over very quickly where the winch mount is going to mount to. If you look back behind the radiator, right below that rivet that's holding the brake line, you'll see a bolt hole open. That's where the two tines that are coming out of the back of the winch mount are going to mount to. The other two bolts will mount to the factory bumper and plastic skid that came factory on it through here. The top two bars that stick up are holding this aluminum brace that supports the grill. And just like the factory Can-Am bumper that's originally on this quad, I made a new bracket which was thicker, so it's stronger. It's 3/8 inch main bar with 1/4 inch bars sticking out the end. That is what I'm going to be using as the back brace for the winch mount, which has been in pictures that I have taken. It will slide in through here and mount just like so. And that's where I'm going to be getting the strength. So with this mount here, the bolt holes right behind the upper A-arm mounts that bolt through the frame into the A-arm mount and cast aluminum bracket that holds the front diff, which you can't really see too well here because it's a little dark in there behind that brake line. It will be mounted in those two spots. The bracket that wraps around the frame, the lower bracket that supported the original bumper, and the aluminum bracket that comes down in front of the radiator. I will do a test and let everyone know how it goes for strength. I don't think I'll have any worries whatsoever on that. As you can see, the quad is a little dirty. Being here in New York, it's kind of cold to be washing it without it freezing. I have had it out throughout our incredibly poor winter conditions. Lack of snow is definitely showing in New York. We shall see how everything goes from here. I do, of course, being in New York, run a battery charger all year round when it's not being run. I put a quick disconnect on it, which is right there, which runs back to the starter solenoid to give power to the battery when the charger's hooked up. I got that connector off Advance Auto for battery chargers. And it plugged right into the Schumacher battery tender I have, which they stock, which is right here sitting on top of an old kitty litter container. Keeps the battery